Luke and Penelope had been married for 3 years, living together in a modest apartment just outside the city. Both of them worked steady jobs, yet their temperaments couldn't have been more different. Luke was grounded, a man who found comfort in routine. His evenings spent at home, grocery trips that followed the same rhythm, quiet hours in his living room with nothing but silence for company. Penelope, on the other hand, was fueled by restlessness. She thrived on novelty, excitement, and the kind of spontaneous energy Luke could never quite match. At the beginning of their marriage, those differences felt manageable, even charming. Luke did his best to keep up with her pace, going with her to parties, dinners, and late-night gatherings, trying to bridge the gap between them. But habits ingrained over a lifetime don't unravel so easily. With time, Luke drifted back into his comfort zone, content with his solitude, while Penelope grew tired of dragging him along. Eventually, she stopped asking. She'd simply scribble a note on the counter, where she was, who she'd be with, and walk out the door to chase her adventures alone. One particular weekend, bored and restless, Penelope joined her friends for a last-minute night out. They started at a small cafe she'd once casually mentioned to Luke, but by midnight, her plans had shifted. When Luke called, her voice was nearly drowned out by pulsing music and laughter. She was now in a nightclub. The thought unsettled him. Luke had never stepped inside one, but he knew enough to imagine the things people went there searching for. He asked her when she might be home, his voice soft, almost pleading, but Penelope brushed him off, her energy still racing, unwilling to leave so soon. Luke dozed off on the couch, his thoughts gnawing at him until sleep pulled him under. When he finally woke, stiff and uneasy, it was hours past the time Penelope had promised. His calls went unanswered. Then, just as his frustration hit its peak, the door opened. Penelope walked in, calm and collected, as though nothing were out of place. Her clear-headed composure disarmed him. When he began to press her, she silenced his doubts with an apology, saying she'd lost track of time. She suggested they head to bed, and her gentle tone dissolved the anger he had tried to hold on to. The next morning, Luke awoke to quiet. Penelope was still in bed, curled beneath the covers, smiling faintly in her sleep. He felt the embers of his irritation, but they quickly faded. He wasn't one to cling to resentment. His thoughts wandered instead to the holiday he had been saving for, a beach trip he'd been planning for months. He asked playfully when they would finally take it. Penelope stirred and smiled, her eyes sparkling at the mention of escape. Yet Luke couldn't know that their savings would soon be used for something far different. Over the following week, Luke noticed her phone buzzing constantly. Each time, Penelope would glance at the screen and swipe the notification away before he could see. On the rare occasions he caught a glimpse, the messages were gone, wiped clean. Subtle, yes, but enough to plant suspicion deep in his chest. By Friday, Penelope announced she'd be going out again. Another night with her girlfriends, another round of dancing at the club. Luke didn't argue. Instead, he quietly resolved to follow her. That night, Penelope and her friends slipped into the nightclub with ease, greeted with free entry and laughter that echoed over the bass-heavy music. From the corner of the room, Luke watched, blending into the crowd. At first, everything looked harmless. Penelope danced gracefully, her movements carefree. One of her friends flirted openly with a stranger on the floor, her behavior so bold that Luke instinctively recorded it on his phone, as if collecting evidence. But then Luke's focus shifted back to Penelope. He noticed the way her eyes scanned the room, searching, expectant. Suddenly, the energy of the place shifted. Performers appeared on a raised platform as the music swelled. The crowd cheered. The dancers moved with unrestrained confidence, sensual and magnetic. At the center was a man with sculpted features and dark glasses, his presence commanding. Penelope's face lit up with an expression Luke hadn't seen in years, rapt admiration, even longing. Jealousy struck him hard. Was this stranger captivating her in ways Luke no longer could? When the performance ended, the dancers slipped backstage. Penelope leaned toward her friends, whispered something that made them shriek, and with a smile brimming with intent, she walked toward the service area, slipping behind a curtain. Her friends clapped and cheered her on, oblivious to Luke's watchful eyes. Seizing his chance, Luke intercepted Lillian, one of Penelope's closest friends, as she headed toward the restroom. He blocked her path firmly. "Stop," he said, his tone like ice. Lillian froze, startled. "I can imagine the excuses you're about to give," Luke continued, pulling out his phone. He played a video. Penelope on the dance floor, her body pressed against a stranger. "Let's jog your memory." Lillian's face fell. Her confidence crumbled, and she whispered shakily, "They've met before. There were sparks. I thought she'd tell you herself." "I'm sorry, Luke." The words struck him harder than any blow. He didn't reply. The truth was undeniable now, and no one else could carry the blame. Hollow and numb, Luke left the club, the noise and lights fading into nothing behind him. At home, he packed quickly, stuffing years of shared memories into bags. He couldn't stay another night in a home tainted by betrayal. The savings once meant for their beach trip carried him instead to a new apartment, closer to work, far from Penelope and everything she had broken. Penelope tried to reach him again and again, spinning stories, insisting it was a misunderstanding. But Luke was resolute. He filed for divorce, severing ties cleanly and without hesitation. As a final act, he sent the video to Nathan, Penelope's brother. Nathan's reaction was swift: disgust, disappointment, and finally,